My name is Marcus Green, and this is the third in our series, Getting to Know the People Behind Moodle. And today I'll be talking to Mary Cooch, who is the Education Manager at Moodle HQ. Hi Mary, thank you very much for agreeing to do this conversation with us today. I wonder if you could give a little bit about your background before you became involved with Moodle and how you became involved with Moodle.
Yeah, well, actually, my background is as a modern foreign languages teacher in a high school. I'm based in the northwest of England. Nearest cities that people have heard of are Manchester and Liverpool. And I started my one and only other job here as a teacher in 1985. Teaching languages, and so for the first 20 years or so that was with a blackboard and chalk, and then with a whiteboard and coloured pens. And then in the early noughties, is that it? We got the internet, and personally as a hobby I just started exploring how I could use websites to help me teach languages. And I won a competition, an online competition, and the prize was a year's free hosting of anything you want. And I thought, I'd seen people, teachers, talking about this thing called Moodle. So I said, can I have a Moodle site, please? And I started trying it out with my own pupils in my language classes, completely unaware that actually the IT, the information technology department, was using Moodle, was trialing Moodle for the whole school, as indeed our whole education authority was. And then they found me out when one of my students happened to mention it. And so they invited me into the trial group, which was very interesting because it just goes to show that it shouldn't only be the IT people who are using Moodle, you know. And so I was the first non-techie person, and then we got people in the history department and English department and so on. And I really liked it. So this was in 2006. So then I started helping our teachers in our school. Then I started helping teachers in other schools in Lancashire, then around the country. I was approached to write a book, which I wrote in 2008. I attended my first ever, not only my first ever Moodle Moot in 2009, but always was it 2008, my first ever conference anywhere. It was Loughborough University. It was the first ever time that I'd ever presented anything to adults. I'd only recently learned how to do PowerPoint from my teenage son, but it went down quite well. And so then I started a blog, and I started, again, it's just a hobby, making little videos to explain things to the teachers that I was training, all the time still teaching French and German. Then I got an invite to do the keynote at the Moodle Moot Australia in Sydney in 2011.
How exciting!
So I went and did that, and Martin took me into his office in Perth and said...
Martin Duguiamas, the founder of the whole Moodle project, yeah.
The CEO of Moodle, and said, there is a full-time job going here if you like it. But it took me a couple of years part-time to drag myself away from my school where I'd been for over 2 decades. And I started writing or helping community manager Helen Foster to rewrite the Moodle 2, to rewrite the documentation for Moodle 2, the brand new shiny Moodle 2 as it was then. And so I officially joined Moodle full-time in April 2013. My job was, well, we had to find me a job title. So I was documentation fairy for a year based on my Twitter handle, which is Moodle Fairy.
Moodle Fairy, yeah.
Until it was time for me to do my UK tax return. And I thought, I can't really put documentation fairy. It doesn't look quite a serious job. So I was then community educator. And then since then, 2020, I became education manager from rewriting the Moodle's Educator certification program, which we can talk about later. What else would you like to know?
Well, what's a typical day involved for you? I know you, I've known you from very early days. Probably I first saw your name in 2006, and I know you from the forums because I contribute to the forums. And I kind of imagine you reading everything posted on the forums and that kind of thing, which probably isn't correct. What is a typical day or a week of your work for?
Yeah, it is kind kind of correct. I straddle several teams or areas because from beginning with just doing documentation in 2013, my role has kind of grown organically. The hobby I was doing of making little videos grew into making them officially for Moodle for new releases. The teaching aspect turned into making courses, but I still very much, my heart is with the community. So I'm always looking in the Moodle forums, English, French, German, Russian, just because I love answering questions, basically. You know, I just like answering questions, and I'll sometimes officially stop work. I'll be with my husband watching the television, and I'll just go on the Moodle forums and see if there's anything that I'd like to answer. So a typical day would be having to get through certain obligatory meetings, which we all have to do, checking the Moodle forums, designing courses for Academy, which we can talk about maybe later. And at the moment, of course, I'm working on preparing screenshots, screencasts, and documentation for Moodle 4 and release materials for that.
This is publicly, I have to say, you know, that your contributions to the forums are excellent, because I post a lot on the forums.
I feel that.
But sometimes I feel I may come across as a bit, I try not to, but a bit tetchy, sort of, why would you ask that question? Which is really not good, because you never seen, but your contributions are also very, very positive and supportive. And I think this is a tremendous contribution to the overall feeling about the project. Now, you mentioned that you're a linguist, and I was wondering if you've got some examples or anecdotes about how being able to read through forums in other languages, how that gives you a perspective on how people use Moodle globally.
Well, it's great actually, because it gives you a different outlook of different cultures. I go in the French, Russian and German forums, although I respond mostly in the French ones because that's my best language. But what you get is how different people use Moodle in different ways. For example, the French forums are very into the administration side, into the language side very much. And so, for instance, very often, if there is some kind of bug that comes in Moodle.org or in a new version, it will be spotted in the French forums first, and I can go and point this out to the developers. Oh, someone in the French forums had said such and such. German forums, for instance, are very much on the teaching side. They use German in many schools all around. They use Moodle in many German schools. And so that's very useful too. There's a lot of good teaching practice over there. So yeah, it's just great. And of course, having those languages means I can answer more questions rather than just being limited to English.
Absolutely, yes. And I've noticed there seems to have been a rise in the contributions and activity from the German-speaking world. And I've found that, because in the early days, it was very much, to my eyes, it was concentrated on English speaking, but in reality, there's a huge number of people from the Spanish-speaking world use Moodle.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yes.
So that gives you the perspective that a sadly monolingual person like me, I just don't see it. I wonder if you'd like to talk about your work with Moodle Academy, which is the logo behind you, that's it, yeah. For me, that's yeah. So when we were discussing this, we mentioned the word MOOC, but I think it's more useful to talk about. And I've been involved in a few chats online recently about the Moodle Academy, and I'm really excited by it. Tell me what it is, where it is, and what you all hope to achieve from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a long background to that, because I joined in April 2013, and in September of that year, we did our first ever Learn Moodle MOOC, Martin's idea, as all the best ideas are, for people to learn how to teach with Moodle. And then it's been running twice a year ever since. We're not sure when the next one will be because of Moodle 4 and moving to Academy, but basically on the site learn.moodle.org, as well as the facilitated MOOC, are several self-paced courses for teachers, admins, and one for developers. Now, we want to broaden this out, and so we've started literally last year with Moodle.academy, which is the learning hub for all kinds of learning with Moodle, headed by Academy Manager Jessica Gramp. And so those courses will be brought into Academy. They'll still be there. They'll be like mini modules, but everything you could do on Learn Moodle, you'll be able to do on Academy. You can still keep your badges and certificates, of course. And we're going to offer more. So we have 3 on Moodle Academy, all free, by the way. I've got to say, I love free stuff, you know, and my heart is with the community, with open source, with free. So this is all free. Free badges. If you want a certificate, you pay for a certificate, but you know, you don't have to. You can do everything for free if you wish. The three learning pathways are Educator. So that's how to teach with Moodle, different ways that you can use it. I'm running a webinar tomorrow on gamification, for example. Then we have an administrator pathway, how to be a good administrator and the various aspects of that, and a developer pathway. So the educator pathway is already on its way because we have quite a bit already from Learn Moodle, and then administrator.
We've chatted about this previously, and apart from the developer, which is clearly all about Moodle itself, a lot of this stuff is about as much about education as it is about education using this button, that button with Moodle, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, for instance, I've been writing a course, a very basic course on accessibility. So make your Moodle course accessible, but it's not really only your Moodle course, it's all of the materials you use in anything you do online. So being aware of that. So there is a lot of that aspect to it. Yes.
Yeah, there's a slogan around Moodle, sort of empowering educators. It's not about, obviously, you know, we want people to use Moodle, but it's not about empowering technical people. It's about
no, it isn't. Teachers. That's right, it isn't. Although we do want to empower the technical people to run their Moodle sites well for the educators and learners, obviously. So that's why we also have, or will be having, an administrator strand as well, so that it can be well managed, I think. Yeah. So that's the Moodle Academy. Yes. One of the things that I've found a really useful resource over the years is the Mount Orange High School, which is a great tool and an answer to a lot of questions on the forums when somebody says, my Moodle doesn't do this. You say, well, can you test it out over on those sites? Will there be something similar for Moodle Workplace, which is the version of Moodle that's focused for mainly for corporations? Is there going to be something similar for that? I think so. I really hope so, but also I think so because it is something that has been discussed in HQ and the workplace team that would be really useful. So it is a question of getting down and designing it. So although I can't say, it's coming out next month, yes, the plan is at some point, because in fact, you know, Mount Orange is basically a high school, but it would be great to have something as a demo more suited to corporate learning, as in workplace or higher education and so on. So these are all things that we are planning as we expand and have more people to help us do them. Yeah, I found it very useful over the years. What I was going to ask, the MEC, like you were saying about Moodle Academy, it's an educational qualification rather than a technical thing about this is how you use Moodle. And I wonder if you could describe who do you think would benefit from taking it, and how long does it take to complete it typically? Yeah, so the MEC, the Moodle Educator Certification Program, and this is for our educator path. We do hope at some point to have a Moodle Administrator Certification and Developer Certification, but this is one that is for advanced Moodle using teachers. So I have to say it's not training. You get your training either from a Moodle certified service provider, or you can do the free courses such as Titus, yes, or you can do the free courses on Academy, and you need experience. So it's something that you can only really access once you've, once you know how to use Moodle and you've got experience with it. You don't actually have to have had any training, but you do have to have used it in the real world for at least a year. Yeah. And it's not how to add a forum, it's not how to set up a lesson. It is things like collaborative learning or ways of assessing, or how to include your learners and things like that, you know. So it's based on a European framework, DigComp Edu, and so you meet 22 competencies, and how long it takes really depends on who works with you through it. So this is something that you access via certified service providers, such as Titus, for example, who have a facilitator who's been trained by us at Moodle HQ to help you go through it. And there are 6 courses, each of which, once you've read the materials, you do a couple of assignments to certify and confirm your knowledge. So it's not learning, you're not being trained, you are there to show us that you know how to teach with Moodle. And in fact, everyone who finishes the 6 courses, to get the certificate, each one is personally checked by a member of Moodle HQ in the team.
So it's a serious qualification, but to get an idea of it, it's not like a 3-year course, and it's not like a 2-week course. No, it's kind of like...
Depending on which service provider you use, it could be, for instance, a 6 weeks course or 4 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You might have a certain number of months to complete it, but typically that's the kind of period, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just wanted people to know, not to be intimidated by, you know, they might think, oh, does this take a year or 3? Is it like a PhD?
No.
It's not that. No, that's really
in terms of the price, that also varies. It's not free. I just have to say, this is I know. Well worth it.
Because I know the person here at Titus who's been the facilitator for that sort of stuff. I'm going to say I met you through Moodle Moots, which are the Moodle-specific conferences, and I was wondering what is it that you enjoy about Moodle Moots, and I wondered if you've missed the you know, during the pandemic, if you've missed some, you know, the things you get from Moodle Moots, and what's coming up in the Moodle Moot front in the near future, which I should know, but I haven't been following so closely.
Yeah, I have missed face-to-face events, although I'm used to working online, so it's not been as much of a suffering as it has for other people. But yeah, I am really looking forward to the next face-to-face Moodle Moot. I hope it will all go ahead. It's being planned, which is in Barcelona, the Global Moodle Moot in September in Barcelona. You're all invited.
In Barcelona?
So I'm really looking forward to that. What I like, obviously my number one thing that I like is the networking. You know, I enjoy the presentations, learning what, you know, get new inspiration. But I think it's those things, as many people say, in between the sessions where you're just having your coffee and you're chatting in various groups, that you pick up the best ideas. And although online moots have got much better in that respect, with various kind of software to enable you to join a table and have your video and speak, like as we are now, it still doesn't beat the actual face-to-face experience. So I'm looking forward to getting my plane ticket, which I'll print off to go to Barcelona.
Absolutely, yes. I was at a moot in Barcelona before the pandemic, and it's a fantastic city, and I really, really enjoyed it. The big buzz at the moment, the thing that's bubbling under, is obviously Moodle 4.0 that's due out in the next few months or so. And I wondered, what are the standout features of that you're looking forward to, and that makes you think, yeah, this will make a difference to ordinary users, for teachers? Well, what's the main good stuff that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so if you want a big feature, I can give you a big feature. That's admin presets. It basically allows the admin to decide what will be shown and not on the site. And so for ordinary teachers who are sometimes overwhelmed by all the features, and that has been a complaint about Moodle, it doesn't have to be anymore. They can have a nice, clean, simpler outlook until they get more familiar with it. So as a big feature, that's definitely going to be good. But I always find when I prepare release materials that it's sometimes the smaller, lesser noticed ones that actually make a big difference. So my 2 favorites are the fact that when a teacher goes into a course and creates a new activity or updates an activity, there's a little box they can tick to notify the students that something new has happened. And this will cover something that's often been requested on the Moodle.org forums. You know, how can I tell my students I've updated this in the course? tick the box. The second thing, and I know this has been requested, is that in the same way that in a quiz you can set a time limit, you can also set a time limit in the assignment. And I was checking this yesterday, actually, and it's not quite the same, because although you set the time limit, you can still continue with your assignment, but it does tell the teacher that you've handed it in over the allocated time. So just to clarify that.
Yeah, yes, I had noticed that. And the thing I like is that auto submit can historically be problematic, and it's really quite alarming for students when, you know, you're working on it and then it gets submitted. And I really like the idea of a time limit, but don't make your students any more anxious than strictly necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we have to be inclusive in that respect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we should concentrate on the teaching and learning and not the technology associated with it. Thank you very much for your time today, Mary. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing you face to face at the Moots, if not before. And also, I know that the other thing that's happening is the Moodle Users Association. Anybody who's watching this and who's interested in developments in Moodle, I strongly recommend the Moodle Users Association, and I'll be doing a presentation for that later on today. So thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And well, see you around online and then in the real life.
Indeed, yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.